Hello and welcome to 20 Lore Pro. I'm SirAshtown and joining with me today is Sky from the 20 Lore Pro Discord. How are you doing today, Sky?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you today. And when I go through the Discord and I'm looking for decks to kind of try out or to test or to add to kind of what I'm going to be doing with my cube as I'm going up to maybe a DLC, I always try to see which ones have the most comments, because you see a lot of variety of people who are talking about the deck or teching, and Sapphire Steel was one of those lists. It had 24,000 comments in the Discord, and Sky, you're one of the main contributors, and so wanted to get your opinion today on the deck. So thank you so much again for joining us.
Yeah, for sure.
Talking about TCGs and kind of who you are as a player, can you give us a little bit of background into your history with trading card games?
Yeah, I started with Hearthstone. That's what kind of got me hooked. I kind of fell in love with strategy games. I was never like a big FPS kid, I guess. I played, Black Ops and stuff, but I think my strong suit was definitely more strategy-oriented games. Yeah, now we're here with Lorcana.
Yeah, that's such a cool progression, because like Hearthstone, really one of the pioneers for those type of electronic games, having a digital client that's easy to play, grabs the audience's attention, and really just had a great interface. So what kind of brought you into Disney, and how have you been doing so far with the trading card game of Lorcana?
I've been a big Disney fan for my whole life. My family raised me on going to the Disney park since I was like 3 years old. I've gone probably 30 times combined between Disneyland and Disney World.
Wow.
And then, of course, if you're a Disney fan, you love the movies too. So I love card games before. I love Disney. I knew I was going to have to give this card game a good try. Just an interest in Disney and card games brought me into it.
Yeah, it's something that I've been really impressed with Lorcana so far. And I love getting into the game at the beginning of it. You kind of get to see how it evolves and how the community and the culture forms around it. But we've seen some really good cards, and some that have been reflected from other games, not just Magic, but even Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Pokemon, and some that are their own, kind of like locations. Kind of neat to see some of these keywords coming back into Lorcana. You've kind of been a Sapphire Steel player kind of for a long time with Lorcana so far.
Oh yeah, like the whole time I've been playing. Even in set one, I think the deck that I built and played like 3 games on before just stopping was Sapphire Steel.
That's pretty cool. What kind of gravitated you towards Sapphire Steel, like within the play space of it?
So in set one, when I was just messing around, I think I opened some bells and I was like, let's build around this. This card looks fun. But set two, when I actually started playing, I had heard Red Purple was like the tyrant of the format. It's like tier 0, 60-65% play rate. Like, it's either beat this or play it. And I was like, something's not right here. Like, why is a tier 0 deck below 50% win rate? Like, that just doesn't make sense. So I was like, I wasn't interested in playing that, and especially not playing the mirrors, because the mirrors I'd heard were horrible. But then I looked at Blue Steel. Blue Steel was like the highest win rate, 54%. So I was like, okay, well, we'll try this. This looks cool. I played Blue Steel set 1 a little bit. We'll see if this is good. And I played it, and it was awesome. There was some changes I made that I thought could streamline the deck and make it a lot more consistent, because I think a lot of people are scared about consistency issues. Main thing being like they weren't playing enough 2-drops. Some people were playing like 0 to 4 2-drops, and you always wanted to hit a 2-drop in the format. Like, not hitting a 2-drop just made your win rate go down so drastically that I couldn't believe that people were playing so few. I played 8 2-drops, and then people were playing Cinderella package, I think, the Cinderella 2-drop, and then like the Shift Cinderella. I didn't like that. I thought it was super unnecessary to win, so I replaced that with like Gastons and Develop Your Brain. And yeah, it worked out good.
Wow. That's really great to hear that you really took a deck that hadn't really been as honed in, and you were able to monopolize on it and get the win rate and success to win stuff like the pack tournaments, and to have really success enough to where people were trying to like find out your strategy and talk to you about it and pick your brain. Well, before set 6, we have Seattle, so we still have a whole nother opportunity for players to come to Continentals to qualify, as we're kind of stepping into store championships that we've seen right here, and we're getting ready for set 5. Can you give us a broad overview of the deck and kind of the main components of how this deck is trying to win?
Yeah, for sure. So first of all, it's no wheel Blue Steel, so we're not playing a whole new world. If anybody looked at what I was playing set 4 for no wheel, it's very similar, especially before Chicha. So like the main core is kind of remain the same. We're still playing 7 2-drops. Me is almost always a 4 of, and we have our flex 2-drop slot is in Broom. Now we play Chicha, which is kind of a pseudo 2-drop, in my opinion. Still a blue steel deck that wants to do stuff that Wheel wants to do, but you're just not playing Wheel, so it's built a little bit differently. You want to play always a Popsicle. We have 8 of those between Fortisphere and Popsicle. I always want to play a 2-drop. There are some matchups where 2-drop isn't super necessary, but usually those are the matchups where Chicha is very good. Always want to hit a 2-drop if you can have it. Fishbone Quill this set is much stronger than last set no wheel. There's a lot more matchups that feel so much better, especially going second with Fishbone Quill. But we still play Mickey because you have to hit ramp or else it's very bad. So we want to play a ramp on turn 3 always. And then usually with no wheel, you want, instead of going to a Singer, you're going to want to go into Flaversham on every game. If you're not doing that, you're probably very worried about the tempo that they have. You're probably going second, so you'll probably want to do like a Fishbone Quill into Tinkerbell if you're not playing Flaversham on 4. But I think going first or second blind, you're always going to plan on trying to play a Flaversham on turn 4 because he's pretty much your entire draw engine. Especially before Chicha, he was like him and Tamatoa were like all you had. So we're doing that. We're playing 2-drop ramp and Flaversham the next turn. Then after that, what we're threatening is like just a bunch of big stuff. So if we played Mickey, we can threaten to go with Tinkerbell on turn 5. That's typically like a strong line you can do. If you're playing Quill, things are much better and stronger. A very strong line you can do with Quill is you're at 8 ink on turn 5 and you just play a Tamatoa. Get that going because a lot of matchups they'll probably brawl your Flaversham or Little Sisu it if it's red. So you just want to go into something that's either another Flaversham plus something or just a Tamatoa, and he's like a mini Flaversham that also gives you a bunch of lore, and they have to deal with it with like a Maleficent a couple turns or B prep. So yeah, after that, that's honestly your strongest line is to go into things like Tamatoa versus stuff like aggro, just stuff like Tink. We have stuff like Simba is great against anything that's really not like red purple or red blue. Sometimes against red purple it's even very good. The pink can kill something that can threaten to hit for 5 on a location is pretty good. But yeah, other than that, we still have stuff like Grab Your Sword for green. Both yellow steel and green steel, it's very good against. Also Steel Song, if they don't rip it with bare necessities, it's nice to have. A lot of times what happens in like the Steel Song matchup is you'll play, like a Cogsworth or an Ariel that has wards, so it's going to live. And then if they have to rip a wheel, you're always going to threaten to sing a sword plus play a Tinkerbell or something. So we still need to play those. It's still just too good against the steel stuff. Of course, we're a Lucky Dime deck, so if we're not playing red-blue, we have the space to play more on Inkables like Ariel. So we can really just abuse Ariel and Lucky Dime like at the end of the game. Also stuff like Pete combos with that now that we have. You can go Ariel plus Pete. They can't be prepped, they can't remove it at all. And then if you have a dime, of course, that's 10, 11 lore right there. Yeah, and that's the deck kind of from the start of the game to the end of the game.
Yeah, this seems like a pretty explosive list, like you were saying, like especially when you get Fishbone Quill, you can get up. But if you can get ahead early on the ink and then get to your major players like Ariel or Simba, Tinkerbell to handle threats, pretty strong.
It's really strong, especially if you do have the Quill start and if you have the draw to keep inking with Quill, like you have very strong stuff to do in this deck.
You said that there is another version that plays Whole New World. Is there, do you think, a better advantage right now with the meta to play this version over the Whole New World?
I do, yeah. So since I've been playing No Wheel pretty much exclusively at tournaments since set 4. So the main reason why we had to swap in set 4 was because the main 2 decks were Green Steel and Red Blue. And you really didn't want to have Wheel in your deck in either of those matchups, so green could just rip it. I mean, yeah, you can play a 5-drop Singer and then hope to top deck it, but that's not a great game plan going into matches like that because they're a discard deck. You're just going to be going off the top hunting for it. So if we don't want it in either of those 2 matchups, and they're the top 2 matchups, we probably shouldn't be playing it. It's like Red Blues, it's just bad to do it because they can double ramp if you're going first, and it still kind of feels bad to Wheel. And then going second, it just feels terrible to give them a free refill and just let them play a Quill and go down to 2 cards, and you just say, okay, I'm going to sing a Wheel now. It's very tough to claw your way back in matchups like that where they have a lot of big, effective, board wipes and threats like Tamatoa. So if they don't want to play Wheel in either of those top 2 decks, let's not do it. I always said in set 2 or 3 that if we had 8 Flavershams and 8 Popsicles, we could play without a Whole New World. And we got Fortisphere. So that's 4 more Popsicles. So I said, let's try it. Like this set, we have some tools that makes it even more enticing, like Vision of the Future, that can kind of help us dig for our Flaversham since we're so heavily reliant on them to draw cards.
Yeah, Visions of the Future, I mean, just digging 5 deep, able to find that card you need, really does make Flaversham even that much more playable. You can go ahead and grab that Flaversham and then get in there with it whenever you need all that card draw.
The main turns I'd say for Vision that it shines, other than like late game when you just have a bunch of ink and digging for good stuff, is turn 4. If you have a Fishbone Quill start, you can be at 6 ink that turn, so you can play a Vision of the Future to find the Flaversham and still play it, which is fantastic. And then, like you said, also turn 2 in some matchups, it's fine to miss your 2-drop if you just want to find the Flaversham. So yeah, fitting it in on turn 4 is like the main thing that I was like, okay, we can play for this card now.
Now, looking at this list and playing it, what have been some of your best matchups? Like the deck that you want to see across the board, you know, okay, I'm going to get this win right here. This is pretty cut and dry.
I think Blue Steel has been a deck that doesn't have the most polarizing matchups. I think in the past it was pretty polarizing for aggro stuff, but I think aggro's gotten just a lot scarier into anything just because it has more efficient stuff like Daisy. So I think aggro's still a good matchup, but I think across the board, most of your matchups are not very polarizing at all. I think you just have, I think you're favored into pretty much everything except maybe red blue you're like even with. So I think there's nothing that feels like insane, like, oh, I hit my matchup. Maybe green purple is like the best thing that you can see, just because they don't do anything too scary other than like Queen's Castle. Yeah, I think aggro stuff is probably your best bet is to 2-0, just because if they have any rocky curve, like not their nuts line, and you just hit your marks, you're probably going to come out on top.
Yeah, so you feel like this deck has a great playability into almost any deck that's out there on the field. Not necessarily you're too far behind, but it's got a good play state into that matchup. Yeah,
and some people will say that that's not how you should be playing the deck, or that the style of deck for best of 2 format, you should be playing something that's, you know, very polarizing in a couple of the relevant matchups and just loses the others, and just, you know, try to hit your run at the tournament. But at the same time, it's a card game, so I think when people think like that, they put together the deck that you're playing is going to do their most optimal line that kind of locks you out when they go first. That doesn't always happen. Like you can play the theory game of that for deck building purposes, but when you get to a long tournament, like you will have rounds where they don't find their Flynn Sisu castle. You know, there is ways to come back by just doing what you do well. So I think that is something to keep in mind, that they're not always going to have it. So playing a deck that just does generically well is still valuable.
Yeah, that's something that I like about Blue Steel, is that it's got a lot of card draw and it's got a lot of powerful answers to things. So if you need to answer to something on the board, you have the opportunity to draw into it, and it's not just luck, because you're setting yourself up. You've been drawing through your deck, like you're going through it to get the cards you need. You're using visions, you're using the popsicles, so the odds are higher that you're going to see the stuff you need.
Yeah, speaking of like doing what you want, and Blue Steel has always been the deck that has the option to play 8 copies of the card that you want to play on your curve, except Flavish in this case, but Vision is kind of like 4 more copies in a way. People that play, you know, red purple and like just want to hit Flynn Sisu Castle and 1-drop every game, everything except the 1-drop is a 4 of, whereas I'm playing, you know, 10 2-drops, I'm never going to miss that. 7 ramp cards and 4 Flavish and 4 Vision, so it's very rare that I miss my strong curve. You're almost always going to have at least a decent start. If it's not Fishbone Quill, it's Mickey, you know, it's still fine. You very rarely don't, you know, like have to deviate from your plan, which is something that other decks do. Especially, main thing that come to mind is red, purple, and green steel being like very heavy. I want to go for this crazy curve or shift Diablo line. Red, blue used to be that way a little bit with just 1 jump, but now they have T-post, so they can play, you know, 6, 7 copies, and you can be much more consistent with it. But yeah, you do what you want to do all the time, essentially.
Would you say that, looking at Sapphire Steel, that your toughest matchup is the Ruby Sapphire? Because it's kind of doing the similar things that you were saying. It's ramping, it's trying to get up, and it has some pretty powerful endgame strategies.
I think on paper, I would agree that, yeah, it's probably your worst matchup. I think the way you build the deck actually, or the way they build their deck actually has a lot of bearing on how it goes. I think lists that have maybe more Sisu focus, maybe more focus on the green steel matchup or steel song matchup is a little bit better for you to see. I think you have a much better chance at 2-0ing in a matchup like that. the people that play 4 copies of B Prep and like just really heavy top end versions of red blue is probably your worst matchup. It's probably actually unfavored then, whereas I'd say most versions of Sisu is, close to 50-50. I think actually the thing I'd be scared of the most, maybe just because I haven't tested against it a whole lot, but aggressive versions of Steel Song with Daisy. Steel Song's always been a deck that has been like a 50-50 matchup, but they have the option to have a nuts curve that just locks you out of the game. And it used to be just with like, they'd sing a Zeus on your first Tinkerbell and you didn't have time to play a Cogsworth, but now they have stuff like Daisy where they can go super aggressive, and if you don't hit like all your marks, like 2-drop plus Quill plus Cannon that turn or something, to like just slow down into Tink, you're probably just losing that game. Like if they hit a very aggressive line with Daisy, it's very tough to stabilize and have them at low enough lore to where they can't just drop 2-3 characters and close out the game. You're pretty much playing damage control the whole game in my experience to playing that. So I think that is like a sleeper scary pick, but not a whole lot of people are playing Daisy and Steel Song. I think there will be more going into Seattle. Yeah, hopefully not. Hopefully people just play the Candio list and don't play. But I wouldn't be surprised if Candio is playing Daisy if he does play Steel Song.
We're gonna have a early prediction right here. We're gonna see if Candio in Seattle is playing Daisy. Call it now.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if he finally didn't bring Steel Song, but I think if he did, I think he would be either playing Daisy or playing like 4 Bare Necessities, because I think he talked about his last list and he said it was a mistake running World's Greatest Criminal Mind, which I think I definitely agree. I think you'd rather have Bare Necessities against the matchups where World's Greatest Criminal Mind is actually good. I think it's just much better and gives you a chance to actually go in second. So we'll see. I could see either Daisy or Bare Necessities, or maybe both. Maybe he finds a way to fit both in.
Well, with Sapphire Steel, with your list that you have right here, are there any flex cards you think people could increase or decrease based on their local meta or their store championship?
So the first thing I would say would be the newest addition would be Chicha. So Chicha is really great into anything non-steel. So if you have a lot of red-blue, a lot of red-purple, maybe even blue-purple, really just anything not steel, like Chicha is what you want to be doing onto every game. Most of those decks will try to just brawl or little Sisu your first Flaversham when it comes out. So you kind of expect that, but they can't, brawl the Sisu and the Flaversham. So having that extra threaten to just draw an extra card each turn with, Fishbone, Quill, and Chicha is just absolutely insane. And it kind of just wins you the game on the spot. If you're going first, just because you're going to have all the cards, all the ink, they're going to be reacting to you the whole time. And unless you have some, crazy brick, you're going to have the cards to threaten and make them react. So yeah, if you have like a lot of heavy red meta, I think 3 Chicha is fine. You could maybe even play 4 if it's really heavy, because you do want to hit it every game. Another flex card, I guess, is like the flexible 2-drop is like Broom. Before Green Steel kind of made its resurgence this format, people weren't playing Diablo except Yellow Green, which was nowhere. So I was playing stuff like Razul because it hit for 3, which is better against, Steel Song. It's better against Red Purple. So if you don't have any Diablo, like maybe people don't want to buy them at your store or something, you can play stuff like Razul. Maybe people like to play Steel Song. Don't worry about the Broom then. You can swap that out or sometimes people play Argus if there's a lot of Red Purple as well. I'm not a huge fan of Argus just because it's pretty much only playable in that matchup and that doesn't feel great. But so flexible 2-drop slot can be changed. Cannon count. Sometimes if you like, a lot of people play aggro stuff, you always want to hit Cannon going first or second. So I think Cannon would be the card that I would probably see myself adding as a 61st card. I don't know what I'd cut yet, but yeah, having 3 Cannon would be nice. Other than that, I think the rest of the list kind of has to stay. I think it's pretty generic like stuff. It's not really tech stuff beyond that. It's just kind of your core of your deck. Some people like to cut down on Tamatoas. I don't like that just because so many situations you're in top deck mode and it's just like, I need another Tamatoa or another Aerial to win the game. So not having 4 copies of that just kind of feels bad. But yeah, I think those are the main flexible things you can change.
Yeah, I like Tamatoa 4 in the sense that, like you were saying, it's kind of like a piece of your win con, but Tamatoa also can get you a lucky dime that may have been destroyed. It could always bring it back from your discard pile and bring it back onto the board.
Yep. If somebody's going to get rid of it, it's going to be probably Hideaway or maybe even Cusco. I think it's important to like max out the count of Tamatoa.
Well, thank you so much, Sky, for giving us an overview of your Sapphire Steel list. We really appreciate it. Any advice that you would give to anyone who's looking to pick up this deck, maybe for the first time, or try it out for the competitive scene, maybe going into Seattle?
Sure, I'd say don't get discouraged, and if you have the time to put into it, you'll definitely see, like, reap the benefits of putting the time and figuring stuff out in different matchups. One major benefit to that is just figuring out the mulligans and nailing that down. A lot of games are won in the mulligan stage. I think if you have a mulligan lockdown for deck, your win rate's just going to go up like astronomically. Other than that, though, I think just getting the reps. It is a punishing deck. I'd say it's simpler than Wheel, just because if you hand somebody Wheel for the first time, they just see a lot more cards usually at the same time, so maybe it's a little bit daunting at first. So I think it's maybe simpler to teach somebody, but it is very punishing as far as like inking decisions right off the bat. So like after you resolve your mulligan, from that point on, like you gotta think, okay, in the next 3 turns, am I going to need this? Like, you really want to try to plan out your exact, like, at least next 2 turns to make sure that you're making the correct inking choice, because a lot of times you will come to regret what you ink, and it's a tough decision. So yeah, just get the reps in and always be hyper vigilant to what you're inking.
Thank you so much, Sky, again, for giving us an overview and a look into Sapphire Steel. Is there any place that people can follow you if they want to find out more about what you're brewing or the things that you're working on?
I have a Twitch, Sky131313 on Twitch, and then Sky Lorcana on Twitter. Or X is what I still post on there. So I'll usually post most major updates to stuff like big changes in the deck, how I'm doing in set championships and DLCs. So you can follow me there.
Well, we'll be sure for everyone who's watching at home to put those in the description. That way you can follow Sky over on Twitter and Twitch. And also, he's in the Sapphire Steel deck discussion in the 20 Lore Pro Discord. So if you ever see him there, feel free to ask questions. Lots of people are there. If you're not already part of the 20 Lore Pro Discord, go ahead and join. Lots of people discussing decks. 24,000 comments on this one specifically during the Set 5 season alone. Tons of people talking about it. So really excited to see and to kind of hear how Seattle ends up for you, Sky. We hope that it goes well. And thank you so much again for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
And you at home, thank y'all for viewing today's video, and see y'all later on.